Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of Nithsdale Area Committee, which is being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the Council website for public listening. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guide or guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting. Writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or your iPad, or just put your hand up. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it's intended to be part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member is to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time, or write leave in the Teams chat function and then write join when you rejoin the meeting. This is so we can keep track on whether the meeting remains quorate. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraphs to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required, or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. Tracy, can you provide the sediment indicating who's participating remotely, and any apologies, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. We've got 12 members present in total, 9 present in person at Council HQ, being the Chairman, Councillor Bell, Councillor Beretti, Councillor Dempster, Councillor Maureen Johnston, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Slater, Councillor Walters and Councillor Wood, and 3 participating via Teams, being Councillor Blake, Councillor Jordan and Councillor Stevenson. And I've got apologies from the Vice Chair, Councillor Stitt and Councillor Hislop. Not present at the meeting at the start is Councillor John Campbell, Councillor Dorward, who'll be joining us just shortly, Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Malcolm Johnston. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy, and I confirm my agreement to the participation of members named as participating remotely. Declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest?
Mary, a question, Provost, and a declaration of interest, but I'll wait until the next agenda item if you want.
No, if you feel it's appropriate here, Jim?
I've managed to bring, I see you said good morning, members, in your opening remarks, and I've managed to bring the 14th of September paper for 10 in the morning, but I presume it hasn't changed, it was just reissued.
No, we do have further information in that. There was going to be a verbal update on one of the items, and we've now got that information in the papers.
I'll try and get another set then. The only other thing I wanted to say, Provost, was there is something wrong when we're starting the meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon after full council, and I don't think it's appropriate. I understand the circumstances, but members, as have had a long day, and I would like to think that in future we'll not schedule Nithsdale Area Committee or any other members after a full council, because like all councils, we all know when, all meetings, sorry, we all know when they start, but we don't know when they will end. So I'm happy to continue, obviously, but I don't think it should happen again. It's not right that we do that. In fact, I think we'd taken a corporate decision that we would not have 2 service committees in the same day. And I think that's recorded somewhere in a previous council, but it should still be relevant, I think. Thanks for that, Provost.
No, noted. I apologise for saying good morning. You see, that's because we've been sitting all day. We've been sitting all day. I'm sure we will be very diligent in all matters that are presented in these papers, even though we've been sitting for a long time. But it is noted, Jim. Okay, we'll go on to item number 3, minute of previous meeting of the 8th of June 2022. Are members happy to note that minute? Thank you. Item 4. Our first report today is the performance report from Fire and Rescue for the previous financial year up to the 31st of March 2022. I'm pleased to see that local data continues to be provided rather than aggregated data for the region. I note the report author sets the context that COVID lockdown has had an adverse effect on performance figures with a rise in almost all reporting categories. I note also that officers had indicated at previous meetings of Nithsdale Area Committee that this was likely to happen, but it was also a trend across Scotland and not just Dumfries and Galloway. Station Commander Andrew Wilson is here. Is he here in the Council Hall? Do we have a Station Master Andrew Wilson to answer any member questions or address any member comments? Do we have anyone from the Scottish Fire and Rescue? Okay, we'll just go to we can't answer. We don't have anyone to answer any members' questions, but do we have any member comments on this item agenda? Councillor Dempster.
Can we bring it to the next committee, Provost? Because there's no point in us commenting if there's not the opportunity to have an officer respond. And again, it may be because we have now caused such an issue by starting at 2 o'clock, these folk have operational duties to pick up. So I would simply note the report and ask that it's presented with an officer at the next Nithsdale Area Committee.
Chair, I agree with Councillor Dempster. And obviously, the report's 6 months, well, 6 months out of date, well, maybe 3 or 4 months out of date. So when the next meeting would be in November, or November the 30th, or November the 3rd or 4th, where it is, maybe it can be presented there, and the people there from Fire Rescue Service here to answer members' questions.
I'm happy to do that. Are members happy with that? Just to note this report, but to bring it back to the next Nithsdale Area Committee meeting so we can scrutinise it.
Thanks, Provost.
Right, okay. Agenda item number 5. This report provides members with an update on the allocations made by this committee in March to our key priority areas and invites members to consider the use of the remaining funds. Members will note from the report that owing to recess and pressures on our council diary, it's not been possible to convene a members' seminar in advance of this meeting, but that this option remains for the decisions to be deferred, if this is the wish of members. And I'm sure all members will agree that it's great to see so many of our civic events returning, supported by our area committee funding, providing an increased sense of normality for local residents following a difficult 2 years for many. This included plans for our twinning activity with Giffon, delivery of a very successful Good Neighbours in Dumfries, and riding of the marches in Sanker, plans in place to recognise our armed forces at remembrance events and celebrations at Christmas light switch-on events. Members will note that following our process to support the delivery of our key priorities, the Christmas light switch-on in Dumfries did not receive any expressions of interest, and so our Council Youth Work Service have been asked to deliver this priority. But as outlined in the report, a request to members for a one-off additional contribution of £3,000 is being requested for the provision of a canopy. Members will also note that a recent electrical engineers report has highlighted the need for urgent works in Sanker and Thornhill as part of Christmas light infrastructure, and further improvement works are recommended within the report for members to consider. We have Lead Officer Derek Heck still available on Teams. Derek, do you have anything to add to your report?
Good afternoon, Chair. Afternoon, members. No, nothing further to add, Chair.
Okay, members, any comments? Any questions for Derek? Councillor Dempster.
What's the cost of the urgent repairs in Sanker and Thornhill? Because I know that we set aside a significant amount of money, and I think every socket for Christmas lighting was replaced in Kirkconnell. It had just failed completely. And we did ask that an examination of the infrastructure undertaken, and clearly that's what we've got before us now, Provost. So do we know how much that urgent work will take, and is it part of this report, or is that still part of the money we set aside last time we met to have that infrastructure inspected? I've another couple of questions for you, but I'll get that in first.
Okay, Derek, do you want to directly answer that?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Dempster. At 3.7 in the report, the works that are required are actually the connections that are at the Sanker toll booth and at the Pegasus in Thornhill. And the amount, as I understand, it's about £11,000, but there remains £3,000 from the previous allocation that the member refers to. for the improvement works that were required. So it's £8,000 additional investment they're requesting, Chair.
Thanks, Provost. And I know we agreed to fund that in its entirety from our budget before we went to opening bids for the remainder. So I expect that members will still support that the £8,000 will be taken from the top line before we go to discuss the other projects that we might want to support. You might want to see what other members think about that, Provost.
Thanks, Jim. Any other further questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Provost. It's actually to do with the £3,000 for the canopy. I remember we had an ongoing issue when we had our own canopy at the Plainstains, and it was left up despite the fact it wasn't designed for the bad weather and all kinds of problems, and it ended up developing cracks in it. And I was under the impression that perhaps somebody was going to potentially look at repairing that, but now we're in the situation where we're spending £3,000 higher on the canopy. You know, what did happen with the old one? Has it just been scrapped?
I believe it was beyond repair, but if Derek has any more information on that, that would be really useful.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Johnson. As I understand it, and I wasn't involved, it's not part of my remit, it was decommissioned, I think is the term that's being used, just following the removal of it. It was beyond repair. So the request that's in the paper today is for a temporary solution that would allow for some shelter, shall we say, for the Christmas light switch on at Nithsdale.
Can I just come back in on that? Because at the end of the day, the canopy that was there before was supposed to be temporary, and the problem with it was just left up, and that's what resulted in this situation. So we're now having to take money out of revenue to pay for this. So it does seem a bit of a waste. And now the next thing, go on to the grant applications. How do we go about publicising it's in the third part of the recommendations, the surplus. How do we approach groups, you know, to inform them that it's available and who can apply?
Derek, can you answer that one?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Johnson. We do that a lot of promotion through our third sector partners, so third sector Dumfries and Galloway, through the locality hubs, through the community planning partner structure. We also use our ward officers who are connected with a lot of community groups and organisations. And again, we'll share that information with members as well to assist us in promoting the opportunities that are available for groups to apply.
Happy with that, Malcolm? To be honest, I didn't know the canopy was coming down until I saw some people doing it. I asked them uptown when I was uptown one day, and they were bringing it down and said it was staying down, so I didn't actually know this information until...
Well, I knew it was coming down because I was a member of the public pointed out to me the number of cracks that were in it, and it was basically stress fractures on the aluminium structure.
Any more? Councillor Slater?
Put my mic on. Could I ask the gentleman on the screen, this tent, what we like to call it, was it the fact that it would cost too much money to put it up and take it down? It was supposed to be temporary, put it up then take it down, but it was left standing, and I believe it takes about 6 men to put it up and take it down, and I was told, you maybe correct me, it cost about £1,500 to do that. So that was the reason it was left up. Now, the fact is cracks did appear, and it was actually, I believe it was actually cut to bits and just destroyed. So maybe you could answer that as well. Thank you very much.
Derek? Sorry.
No, Chair, through you. Unfortunately, Councillor Slater, I'm not actively involved in that part of the works, but I'm happy to get an update from the relevant officers around the process and why that was. I am under the impression that colleagues in road community assets are looking at what means there may be to replace the structure. So the request that's in the report today is just for a one-off. It's just for this year, but I'm happy to take that away, take Councillor Slater's points away and seek some clarity for him.
Thanks, Derek. I'm aware this is just for a because if you're going to deliver the Christmas, then we've quite often got Christmas lights switch on with up and down rain. So I think it's just to protect that particular event. Councillor Barretti?
Right, being a new councillor, I wouldn't know what this canopy looks like. Now, having had dealings with gazebos and canopies over the last 20 years, it would be useful to have a little bit more information about exactly, because I cannot visualise, I mean, what are we talking about here? It's...
No, thanks, Councillor Barretti. Derek, do we have a bit more sort of detail on what youth services are talking about when they're talking about hiring this canopy, what it will actually look like?
I think it's similar to what is used at Youth Beat, so a sort of music type canopy, a proper structure that requires a contractor to come in and erect it. It's not just a gazebo that members may be thinking of. It is a heavy-duty structure, as I understand it. I don't have pictures or information on what it will look like, but I'm happy to get that for members.
Yeah, you can see where I might be a bit confused here, because, you know, canopy to me could be 10 metres by 40, or it could be 5 metres by 30. So volume and dimensions are required.
I would assume it would be to cover at least the large part of the plain stains to be able to conduct this event. I wouldn't think it would be tiny, and I wouldn't think it would be vast. Whatever the dimensions are for the plain stains, I think it would be within that. Is what, but I mean, I don't know what the height would be or how strong it would be or whatever. So it would be really good if Derek could get that information. Councillor Walters.
Just moving on from the canopy. Am I understanding this right? We've got there was £60,000 in the discretionary budget, which we're proposing 46,000 for Christmas, and then it says 3.5 to 3.8. Can somebody just clarify where the 46,000 figure comes from? Is that 35,000 to replace all the switches plus 11,000 for Dumfries? Or I can't quite see where the 46,000 total came from.
Derek, you like to answer that?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Thanks very much, Councillor. Apologies for that if that's not clear within the report. Yeah, there was £60,000 remaining from the previous allocation. From that, the recommendations are £35,000 for the replacement of the switches, £8,000 for the electrical repairs to Sankar and Thornhill, and £3,000 for the canopy. So the 35 plus your 8 plus your 3 hopefully comes to 46.
You happy with that, Councillor Walters?
Yeah, I'm just doing some quick adding up, but yeah, I can see where that's come from. I've got another question as well, but I'll tell that later if you want.
No, if you have another question, that's fine.
Okay, at the bottom of page 43, it says members may wish to consider opening for smaller scale awards up to 2,500 and delegate decisions to the lead officer. I wondered if we've got any examples of where that would be a good idea, and where any application for a budget would need to be dealt with before the next area committee, because I thought one of the principles of this area committee was that they were responsible for how the grants were set out.
Well, we normally, smaller applications are normally delegate the lead officer, and it means they get it swiftly and fast through the system, because for smaller amounts of grants. But I'll let Derek come in and probably say the same thing.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The purpose of that recommendation is to allow, obviously, recognising that members may wish to allocate some of this funding to specific elements to support organisations through the current landscape that we're operating under, and so quick decisions were something that came out of some of the discussions we've been having with groups and through the locality hubs. So it's just a mechanism to make quicker decisions. Obviously, with that liaison with the local ward members, that brings in then the area committee decision-making aspect. It's not delegating fully to officers, it's in consultation with the local ward members. It worked really well during the COVID monies that this committee set aside in the previous year, where quick decisions were required. But absolutely, ultimately, it's up to members to determine that process. We're happy to open up an application process, go through scoring, and bring recommendations back to members to a future committee. But that's one option that was available to members as well, for a quicker turnaround if that's what members wanted.
Happy with that response?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Thanks.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. It's just I find it hard to believe that within Dumfries and Galloway we don't have a spare canopy, and that we're going to just buy one for £3,000 just like that. And I wonder if it isn't possible just to do a bit of research and see whether if there's one lying around in one of our depots or something, because I mean I have seen them at various activities that the council have done and throughout the years, and there must be some somewhere. It's not as though we're devoid of any of these sort of things. So
I'm not sure it's so much as like a little gazebo or such. I think we're talking about something a lot more robust, something that's going to hold up right up at the Plainstains for this event. And we probably have got marquee type things about the council somewhere, but I think we're talking about something with a lot more structure to it.
Well, once again, I'm certain I've seen such apparatus within, and equipment within the council at various events, and I'm sure if there was a bit more research done, we might actually locate one. And I know I hear exactly what you're saying, and I certainly wouldn't want to see some flimsy sort of elaborate umbrella stuck over someone's head with a whole lot of electrical equipment, especially that time of year. But I still believe that there has to be equipment lying there that's not being utilised at present.
I'll bring Derek in to see if he has any clarity on that question.
I think to give members assurance, Chair, that if anybody was to know if any of that equipment was lying around, it would be our Youth Work Services. And given it's them that is putting the request in, as I understand it, they hire in any type of equipment like this for Youth Beats, for example, it's hired in. So I'm not aware, or certainly the Youth Work Services team who are bringing this proposal forward are not aware of any marquee gazebo shelter that would suit the purposes.
Chair, Derek raises a very good point about renting. What is the cost of renting one opposed to buying?
That's what we're doing. This is for hiring.
It is for renting.
Yes,
sorry,
this
I thought
is
it was
for
for
hiring.
purchase.
No.
Right.
Councillor Dempster and then Councillor Slater.
Thanks, Provost. No, I would just go ahead and rent one, because you don't know the condition of these. As sure as fate about off and hurt somebody. And we have a certain degree of cover, for want of a better word, if we hire in somebody else is guaranteeing the quality and standard of the thing. And we expect it'll be a busy, busy place with plenty of spectators. You don't want to have stuff that's not up to par in place or situated in the Plainstains. My question is, Provost, on page 42, the appendix, Remembrance Armed Forces, provision of recent support for remembrance service across Nithsdale, no community inquiry received. Now, I know that the council or Nithsdale Area Committee provides wreaths for all elected members to lay at their respective ward memorials on the day. And I know that one community group in my ward, very active, they have a parade, bands, and they have a small reception afterwards. And it's normally funded by the council, so that's maybe not what this report's saying. This report's maybe looking for somebody to run all 3 or 6 or 10, but there are certainly community groups in my ward that are active on Remembrance Sunday, and there's at least 4 that I know of that have events in well, I'm saying my ward, our ward. So a wee bit clarity on what that is, Derek. Another thing is, surely we can find somebody to run Dumfries Christmas festivities. I think the youth group are just doing the switch on and know the events because there's no interest, and there's nearly £6,000 available for some organisation should they want to come forward and offer their services.
I'll let Derek come in, but I believe we didn't get anyone, and I think £6,000 sounds like a lot, but I don't think it goes as far as we think when it comes to that. Previous people who've undertaken this role have found it really quite difficult to do it within that budget. So, but I'll bring Derek in for both those points, first on the armed forces wreath thing and then on this other one.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Dempster. Yeah, absolutely right. There's a lot of community groups and organisations who do support underneath these umbrella priorities that members have agreed. So just to give you assurance that the expressions of interest we were seeking for the Remembrance Armed Forces was to coordinate the wreaths, as you alluded to there. So that is obviously a function that our council performs and absolutely is supported by those community organisations that you refer to, and that will still be taking place, Councillor Dempster. In terms of Dumfries, yeah, we've done some significant work with previous recipients or previous third sector partners, and as the Chair alluded to there, the £6,000 was used to draw in additional funding because it didn't quite, as our youth work services are alluding to this time around, it doesn't go to deliver the scale of the event that is maybe required within Dumfries Town Centre. So we are having further discussions with potentially other interested partners for future years, but it's just around this year that Youth Work Services have come back on board to deliver it. And members will recall that in the not so distant past, it was Youth Work Services who delivered the switch on event. They are having to scale things back this year, both based on the funding that's available and also the resource that's available within the team. But it's hoped that other partners from within the Dumfries area may be able to get involved with our Youth Work Services to provide the periphery events that Councillor Dempster is maybe referring to. And hopefully in future years we'll be able to get another third sector partner that can deliver this, as is done in the other three local communities that we support from the area committee.
You okay with that, Jim?
Fine with that, Provost, aye.
Thank you, Derek. Councillor Slater?
It was just to say that the canopy, you were asking questions, I would say it's at least 9 metres in height and probably at least 10 metres across, probably more. And the fact that by leaving it up, it got torn eventually, so it did, and then the cracks in the frame. But it was made to take it up, put it down, but that didn't happen. So hence we need a new canopy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Dempster?
Are we going to sort out the table 1 and then go to table 2 and see what we've got to do with that? Because table 1 apparently is quite straightforward. Most of the allocations that have been made or provisions been made to for alternative options. And if we can do Dumfries Christmas festivities, I'd be keen to ring fence it to next year and leave a larger sum for Dumfries to use next year, because we have designated it for that purpose. It's not being used this year. A better attraction maybe the following year with twice the amount of money. It won't help this year because Santa Claus comes every year, but I wouldn't want to take that amount of money away if we could maybe find a provider or a supporting organisation next year to deliver Christmas festivities. And then we should go to table 2 and sort out what we've got to do with the remaining resource.
So what's your proposal for table 1? Because we have youth services that are going to be delivering this time, so that money is going to be used this time. And as Derek was saying, that we were in talks with other organisations, partners, for future festivities at Christmas.
Well, we should have structured the report differently, because it says here, no community interest, so I presumed that just wasn't happening. If there's a community interest by the youth group or youth organisation, it's still community interest. No, I was saying to you, Provost, was leave all the money as is, and any that's not spent this year allocate it to the same project the following year. But if it's all got to be used up, then fine. Let's just deal with table 1. I would suggest we agree that, and then have a debate about how to deal with the remaining resource on table 2 and some of the suggestions that officers put forward and how that might be best utilised.
Does anyone have any objections to that? We're happy to. Right. Okay. So now, as you suggested, Jim, we'll deal with the other parts of this. So we've already had discussions on the £3,000. I think are we in agreement with that? Does everyone agree with the? Don't see anything online. I don't see anyone. No one problem with the canopy? For this one, it's a one-off hire of a canopy. How about the £8,000 for works to the Sanker toll booth and Pegasus at Thornhill? These are essential works. Nothing online neither. So then we get to the one-off £35,000 allocation to replace all switches across the 4 communities. Would you like Derek to maybe give us a little sort of explanation round that? What's required for that, for us to make a decision? Or are we all happy to agree to that?
It's essential work, Provost, so we should just agree to it.
If it needs done, it needs done.
Yeah. That's great. So we're happy to do that. So are we happy to go to recommendations then? Okay.
We can't until we deal with table 2, Provost.
Oh, sorry.
And we've also got to decide about the support for local facilities that promote art, culture and heritage. I'm still concerned that we're channeling money to a very few organisations when there are, well, the crisis has got worse in every respect in our area, whether it be cost of goods and services or whether it be a financial support for village halls, communities, etc. And I think for me it'd be far more appropriate in this current climate to channel the money into that rather than arts and culture, but that's just a personal view.
Okay, thanks for that, Jim. Any other comments on table 2 then for discussion?
Yes.
Councillor Slater.
Could I just agree with what Mr Dempster, Councillor Dempster has said there? Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on the first one, support with utility bills based on 50% of the actual 2021 invoices. Well, obviously, utility bills are going to be considerably more than that. You know, so 50% of last year's bill is going to be quite a small proportion.
This is very true, but it is also assistance. And I'm sure any assistance will be welcome. Yeah, but you're quite right. The figures will be like seriously different even in the next couple of months. Jim?
If we're going to do that, Provost, I would like maybe Derek's thoughts on the parameters, because we decide them at the end of the day. But a couple of examples, just for the sake of it. There's a scout hut in Kirkconnell. It takes kids in, obviously. It teaches them all sorts of disciplines, and they don't fit into village halls, but they will probably have charitable status. And likewise, not that I would suggest we fund football clubs, but a lot of our football clubs, they provide very important introduction to discipline, health and well-being, all the other things that are important to us as an organisation. They don't appear in here. I'm not talking about Queen of the South, but you know, there are football clubs that will struggle with finance. I know one in my area has had the floodlights cut off because the bill quadrupled, I think, in a year. So they're actively tackling their bills, but in doing so, they're reducing the provision of sport facilities in my area. So I don't want to suggest that we just throw it open to everybody, but maybe some guidance from Derek, who's our expert on where the parameters might be. And if it has to be village halls and only, then I'm fine, but I'm just worrying that we're missing out some important organisations that provide for the wider communities that don't fit into village halls.
It's a good point, Jim. Derek, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for that elevation to expert, Councillor Dempster. I think the rationale behind the recommendation that's there for community centres and town and village halls was the recognition of their multi-use or potential multi-use throughout the crisis that is upon us, and particularly over the winter months, running a variety of events and activities for all ages, abilities and interests, whereas you're and I have walking football attached to it, disability sports attached to it, young men, women and children all involved in those activities. It would be absolutely for members to determine, and happy to include support for community facilities rather than just limiting it to community centres, town and village halls. The rationale in there for the 50% on the 2021 invoices was assuming there would be a 50% increase on the cost, so the costs being supported would be that additional cost. So the facility itself has still got to contribute towards its energy cost, but the area committee could be asked to contribute to that additional 50% based on last year's cost. So hopefully that provides a bit of clarity, but absolutely happy to update that based on the wishes of the members if they want to widen the scope of that.
Thanks, Derek. You want to come back in, Jim?
I used to say, Provost, I'm happy with that. And it might be that we need to prioritise which of these 5 suggestions that Derek has brought to us, plus whatever else we might think is most appropriate, because I doubt very much if we'll be able to deliver them all if we accept them all. And certainly, simply because of the community use, I would be keen to see support for the community halls and village halls. There's none of them that I wouldn't support, but I don't know whether we'll have the finance to support them all or no, given the size of Nithsdale and the potential applications that we'll invite. And the last thing we want is to invite folk to apply, snow Derek under, and then reject 90% of them because they're oversubscribed. So I'm hoping other members will contribute, Provost, because I'm quite happy to prioritise them 1 to 5, and we could do it in a staggered fashion. We could give 6 weeks for the first priority, and once that's been addressed on the money that's left, you open up priority 2 or whatever. But that's for another debate at another time. I'd be interested to see what other members think, Provost.
Thanks for that, Jim. I'm at members' wishes, so whatever. Councillor Walters.
Sorry to be a bit dense here, but on 3.9, it says the total budget is 60,000, and this total includes an indicative allocation of 20,000 linked to the cultural strategy. So does that include what is in table 2?
Derek.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chair. Just to be absolutely clear, members have now agreed the £46,000. So that leaves us just with the 14,116.22, which is mentioned in 2.3. So the £20,000 that you're referring to there, Councillor Walters, is included within the 2.1 figure, so the 60,000. So we only have the 14,116.22 remaining.
Thanks for that. That clarifies what we're talking about.
Councillor Johnson Maureen this time.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a point. You're going up to 50% towards utility bills. You're not going to know how much that is going to be until those bills come in. So we won't know how much that's going to cost.
Well, we have a fund, and when it's done, it's done.
Sorry, can I come back in, Chair? It's just how much is that all going to come to if it's 50% of actual bills, because we won't know. So how much will that leave for the other projects, the other things on table?
Derek, do you wish to come in to answer that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Johnson. The recommendation is that we open up for awards up to a maximum of £2,500. So there would be a cap at £2,500. The 50% would be, and that's why we put in the 2021 invoices. So they would have to provide evidence of what their bills were in the previous year, and we would only pay a maximum of 50% or £2,500 if that is the figure which members agree.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you.
Jim, not back in?
Just to say to Maureen, that would be about 60 applicants at £2,500. It's probably more than we would actually get, but that's not the point. I think if that's what we choose to do, we simply do that and then decide if we want any more left, what we do next. Or else we set up a sliding scale now, then Derek, after so many weeks, moves on to Scheme 2 and Scheme 3 until we deal with them all. But my question really was, we haven't decided on 20,000 arts and culture yet. Now, if we add that to the 14,000, that brings it to 34, unless that's already out of the equation, Provost. I don't know, because I've said, you know, given the circumstances, I'd be keen to make sure we use that for the 20,000 for this table of 5 recommendations, rather than ring fence it for property in arts and culture.
Derek, is that already out of the equation?
Yeah, apologies, Chair, if this hasn't been clear in the report, but the total budget that was remaining of the 60,000 included the 20,000 for the key facilities. So that's now been spent, if you like, on those priorities for the Christmas lights. So the only money we've got available now is the £14,000, which is mentioned in the recommendation 2.3. But members may wish to bear in mind that we do have another report on the agenda today around the tackling poverty and inequalities budget, that some of our discussions may be more relevant there as well.
And we are talking about, with this, rather than a sliding scale, rather than starting at one going down, we're talking first come, first served, aren't we?
Yes, what was meaning, Provost, was if after first come, first served, there was money left, then I thought maybe another type of the 4 projects remaining that Derek had highlighted, but it might be just as simple to put it into tackling poverty. We're up to 50% support towards utility bills, and put a period of time when that has to be dealt with, and after that period of time, if there's any residue left, it's just utilised elsewhere, rather than have a meeting to maybe spend another £1,200. If we simply did the utility bills, because that's the one pressing issue for all voluntary groups, where they're going to get the money to meet the costs, and it's costs that are unseen and unaccounted for a year ago.
That's a fair point, Jim. Malcolm, you wish to come back in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's, again, we're going back to the 20,000 here, and it's allocation for key local facilities, promoting arts, culture. Now, there's potentially a crossover there with a community centre, the first part of the thing with the utility bills. So I would kind of assume that if somebody got some of that 20,000, they would be precluded from the other. I know, but no, they're not precluded, so they could potentially apply for some of this other money. But equally, I think to go back to what Councillor Dempster's on about, to get probably the best bang for buck, I think concentrating on the first one would be important, and then again cascade the money down if there's money left. I would support that as a way forward. Then we come to what do we decide we cascade it down to, or do we just open it up to any of the other groups, other categories after that? I don't know what the best way forward is with that.
So am I right in thinking here, so far what's being suggested is that we don't include all these 5 items in the applications, we just concentrate on the top one, and if there's anything left after a certain period of time, then we start going down? But then how do we list the other ones? What comes first with that? Then would it be the other 4 all at once?
What we could do, Provost, and it wouldn't be, I'm saying it wouldn't be complicated, we work for Derek, but it wouldn't be complicated. If we set a time limit for applications for Table 1, for 50% electricity, if we concentrate on that and we say to all applicants, you must have your request in within 8 weeks of being notified, because I presume our ward manager or Derek or somebody will write to all community groups, and we will all do what we can to make sure everyone understands the opportunity presented to them. So if we've met other bills or the applicants and there's money left, we could say to Derek to go back and just give proportionately the remainder of the money to these folk, because it'll not be very much. So if Yin Town Hall it comes in with £500 a year and Yin comes in with 50, it would be, when we get £100 and Yin we get a tenner. But it would use up all the money and use it on utility bills. And if that's too random, then we're going to have to say, after drawing the line, any money left, we go to the next priority and we'll choose it in a moment. And Derek does the same exercise until the money is exhausted.
With the next priority down, or all 4 priorities at once? Because then we would be deciding which of the rest of the priorities were higher priority.
Well, that's what we should do, Provost. We've chosen community centre and town hall villages, or town and village halls. That's project number 1. And we've exhausted that after 8 weeks, and there's money left. Derek could then move on to priority 2. And for me, it was civic pride projects, but because we also do community resilience elsewhere.
I've just had some advice from Tracy that our next Nithsdale Area Committee meeting is on the 8th of November. Did he say?
Put back to the end of November.
Or the end of November. Maybe that would be an opportunity for Derek. If we agreed what you've suggested, Jim, if we agreed what you suggested, maybe that's an opportunity for Derek to bring a report and for us to decide what the order of the rest of the priorities would be, rather than sitting here right now and deciding what we think. Maybe that's, because we would get a report with far more information on each priority. Would members agree with that? Councillor Walters?
Sorry, that's not going to help people who want to apply between now and then, presumably. I thought the intention was that to delegate this was to make it quicker. The other thing is, why don't you just leave it with the other 4 projects there? Because we're supposed to be supporting the community. So if a community comes up with a support to local place action plan, which we could then, or the officer could then support, that would be fine. We shouldn't be saying, oh, that's now bottom of the list, so we're not going to consider that further down the line. Just leave the other 4 open. And then if anybody applies, because it's down to communities to apply, isn't it? And we should be supporting those communities when they apply, not saying, oh no, you're not on the list, or you're 4th on the list, so we're not going to apply until we've done all the other 5. That's my feeling.
I get your point there. I think what we were saying coming back in November would be for the other priorities. We would only be putting applications out for the first one anyway. So no one would, there would be no one coming for a civic pride event project, because there wouldn't be a place to apply for funding for that at that particular time. It would just be this is just a suggestion by member, but this is for all for discussion. And the reason I suggested was bringing back the other 4, because rather than if we were minded to decide and agree with the recommendation of prioritising fully for a certain period of time, the 50 upwards of, up to 50% of the utility bills, then after that period of time was up, then we would have the other priorities if there was any funding left to divvy up between. But this is great. Councillor Barretti.
Yeah, it's effectively management of time and priorities here. Given that the changeover in cost of electricity takes place the 1st of October, and in domestic situations, domestic customers, most will not know what their fees are going to be till at least the end of November and middle of December, because that's generally how long it takes for generators and suppliers to get out bills and estimations. I suspect that all of these other communities and town halls and village halls will be in a similar situation. They will have to submit their meter readings in the next 14 days or 15 days. That's the recommendation by the grid management. So once they've done that, it's going to be at least 2.5 to 3 months before they see their next estimated bill, and by which time that will bring us into December. And as been pointed out, the next committee meeting will be in November. So there might actually be time to make that decision about priorities.
I'm afraid you've lost me with that one, Tony. We're talking about assisting now with utility bills. I know utility bills are going to go up, and then people get their bills at all different times, but they're needing assistance just now as well for the future. And we were talking about, now this is just a suggestion, remember, we were talking about dealing with that priority first now, and then come back to the further recommended priorities in that further meeting. But so this is not a done deal. This is us just having our discussions at the moment. But you want to come in and sort of help me understand what you were saying?
At the moment, because there's going to be a change in price of kilowatt hour and gas thermal, that cut-off period is the end of September. So that means that everyone in the country is going to get a bill, and we'll know what that bill will be in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, unless, of course, someone does take about 4 weeks to get their meter readings in. And that includes all of these entities and all of these organisations. So we'll know what that 50% support is for the current price. The next price, we won't know, because that's going to be at least 3 months away.
We are doing 50% based on 2021 invoices. That's what it is. We're not needing to think about what the next one is. We're trying to give support now on what we... Yes. So that's we know what we can help with, because they'll come, as Derek had said, they will show evidence of their bills. We'll be able to help, and that help now will help for what they have to pay later, because they'll have an assistant just now. Councillor Dempster.
A proposal.
Go for it.
I propose that we adopt the advice or suggestion of our officer, Derek, and we concentrate on the first item on table 2, community centre / town / village hall utilities support, only for 8 weeks. And at the same time, we receive a further report at the November meeting of this Nithsdale Area Committee on the success and any remaining budget, and at that time we can decide what next, or what's the most appropriate action with the remainder of the monies, if we have any. That'd be my proposal, Provost.
Thanks, Jim. Any comments on that, Councillor Johnson?
Provost, if that's a motion Jim's putting forward, I'm quite happy to second them. So.
Thanks, Malcolm. That's a motion, Provost.
Do we have anyone otherwise minded? Do we have something else proposed? Don't see anything online. So do we have everyone agreeing to this? Okay. So is that us through our we'll go through the recommendations now, and then when we get to point 3, we can have an update on that. So, okay, members, we've been asked to note to the total Nithsdale Area Committee discretionary budget remaining for 2022-23 is £60,116.22 as detailed in paragraph 3.9. Note the updates on the key priority areas contained in Table 1 and agree additional one-off allocations to Dumfries Christmas festivities and Christmas lights as detailed in paragraphs 3.6, 3.8, totalling 46,000. And agree the local priority... How will we come up with that, Tracy?
So we're agreeing to adopt one additional priority, being the community centre, town, village hall utility support, and to open up small grant applications for an 8-week period of up to £2,500 on a first-come, first-served basis, delegating the decisions to the lead officer, discretionary budget consultation with local ward members, and for a further report to come back to the November meeting, detailing the success of those applications and the remaining budget that's available.
Members happy with that?
Well done, Provost. Well done, Tracy.
Well done, Jim. Okay, well, we move on. Speed of light to item number 6, agenda item 6. This report requests members to agree the grant application process, priorities, eligibility and criteria for the Tackling Poverty and Inequalities Budget 2022-23 for Nithsdale. The need to tackle poverty and inequalities in our communities has been brought into sharp focus in recent months, and with the cost of living crisis now present in our locality, it's essential that we seek to provide opportunities to support our most vulnerable residents. Again, due to central diary pressures, the usual member seminar has not been possible to convene, but given the emerging situation, it was felt important to bring this to an early meeting of the area committee following the elections. So members are being asked to consider the key priorities, eligibility and criteria, and to establish a fund which will provide support across Nithsdale based on the previous delivery model. Now, Derek is still here on Teams to answer any member questions or address any member comments. Do you have anything to add, Derek?
No, nothing to add, Chair. Happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks, Derek. So, members, any comments, any questions on this item? Jim?
Agree with the recommendation, Provost.
Anyone else otherwise minded? Any other comments? No? So just go to recommendations. Okay, members are asked to, 1, note the Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget for Nithsdale is £76,986.46 as outlined in paragraph 3.2. Agree the priorities, eligibility and criteria for the Nithsdale Area Committee Tackling Poverty and Inequalities Grants 2022-23 as detailed in the appendix. And agree to open for applications to the Nithsdale Area Committee Tackling Poverty and Inequalities Grants 2022-23 and the timetable outlined in paragraph 3.4. Thank you, members. Item number 7, this report is regarding a community asset transfer for the former Lockside Enterprise to a live community radio scale. The report is very detailed and includes the benefits and disbenefits to this proposal. We've got Darren Burns is on Teams to answer any member questions or address any member comments. Do you have anything further to add, Darren?
No, nothing further to add, Chair. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Darren. So, members, any comments or questions? Councillor Slater.
So regarding the asset transfer, what is is there a guarantee of, say, something doesn't work or doesn't go ahead or fails? Is there a clawback that the council can get their assets back? Or can the assets then be possibly sold on and the council loses out? What I'm saying is it's a council asset at the moment. They're going to give it away as such. And is there a what do you call it, a appropriate paperwork in place to say there's a clawback so that it could actually regain the building? The council get the building back out of their assets, or would they actually lose the building at that point, possibly being sold on? So I'm just asking the question. It's important that there is something.
Thank you for that. Darren, do you wish to address that question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 3.92 describes the various mechanisms open to clawback for a council, and that's presented in more detail in Appendix 5. It's certainly for members to make that decision, and the recommendation from this committee would then go to Finance and Procurement Committee. It's a tricky one, clawbacks. It's something that's discussed with many of our asset transfers, and the difficulty of placing a clawback or a guarantee on projects and allowing the projects to proceed in the sense of them being able to apply for external funding. However, our appendix here is from Community Ownership Support Service, the National Service supports community asset transfers. So, the detail is in that appendix, and members, as I say, members are free to place conditions as they see fit.
Thanks for that, Darren. So you want to come back in,
Yes.
David?
So what you're saying, is it Gavin, was it? Steve?
Darren.
It's Darren.
Darren, okay. What you're saying is once it's been transferred and there's a possibility if anything does go wrong, you would find it difficult to claw back any assets. Am I correct or am I wrong?
I think if I explained it not very well. If you place no clawbacks on the application, once the asset transferred, the council would have nothing further to do with that asset, and it would be down to the applicant, the new owner. It is possible to place clawbacks and guarantees, and that then could, in the event of something going wrong, could enable the council to have some sort of say. If it was a guarantee, you would fall. If it was a project that failed, for example, you would fall in line with many other guarantors, I suspect. So it depends on what members in committee decide on whether there's a clawback option. It's not something that we've done for many, if any, of our asset transfers, but that option is available and is presented in Appendix 5.
Jim, would you like to come in?
We've certainly done it with land provost, and I understood we had a philosophy, if not a policy, that we would try and protect the council's asset. We're keen to see community groups take advantage of the asset transfer mechanism, but protecting the interests of the council in as much as if the project fails. And it might be rather than leaving a derelict building that we take it back. I don't know quite how that would work, and I'm certainly not going to try and propose it, but I think we need to have the legal team explore the option of securing a return to the council of the premises in the event that the organisation ceased to function. I think that would be in the best interests of the community or communities. The other thing is, I see the options on 311, page 60. It's interesting to note, and I hope it's a new policy of this council, that we're not being asked to put it on the open market or to ask market value, because that's happened in the past. I like this approach. We're supporting the organisation. They've invested in the property. It's worth £62,000, but it's worth far, far more to them. I think they've spent 59 on it. But nevertheless, we've now got a proposal here, option 1 or option 2, and neither of them include placing it in the open market or seeking market value. And I like that approach, and I think it should be consistent, because what we're trying to do is support community groups and what they're looking to achieve in the region. So I would certainly go with the recommendation with the requirement that, not necessarily Darren, but somebody speaks to legal services to try and secure the premises in the event of the organisation ceasing to exist or ceasing to function.
I would second that.
Malcolm?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just make my view clear on this. I'm happy to recommend that this goes to finance and procurement, because that's what we're discussing here. And as you know, Jim, it'll get a good airing at finance and procurement as well. So there is another chance, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of members out with this committee will come up with ideas about how we protect the council. So I'm quite happy with that. But a report to go along with it to outline how we could protect the council would be perfect. That would be ideal.
It's definitely something we can add to the recommendations, but are we going for option 1 or option 2 for that? Everyone seem happy with 1? Now the report, we've all read the report. It's very detailed and it shows some fantastic benefits. This is a long-term community organisation that's been running a community radio in our region for a long time. They are very successful. So I have great expectations that they will still be there in a long time, because they have, I think it was you that had said, Jim, that they have put a lot already into that. They've refurbished, they've put a lot of time,
Huge
effort, and they have said this is their forever home, because I think they've been looking for that for some time. But if members are happy to go with option 1 with the recommendation to FPT that that legal are looked at just to protect the whatever happens to this building in an event that something's done.
And only, Provost, if that's possible, we don't want to delay the transfer. We don't want to interfere with the process, only if that's possible. And as my colleague Malcolm has pointed out, we're just sending a recommendation to another committee.
Yes, and also that same member said that it will get a going about there as well, and they would possibly come up with the same condition. I would suspect that they would think about the same condition, because it's always something that's raised when we're doing asset transfers, just to protect the actual council in the building.
Sorry, can I come in? Sorry, Chair.
Do you want to go through them before we come to that, or do you?
Yeah, I can do, that's fine.
Right, okay, we'll go through the recommendations then. So number 1, consider the Alive Community Radio's asset transfer request as laid out in Asset Transfer Application Appendix 1 and Business Plan Appendix 2. And 2, consider the outcome of officer assessment of the request in relation to the Council's requirement to meet best value as detailed at paragraph 3.5 and the officer recommendation at paragraph 310. 3, note the outcome of the social value asset assessment of the proposed transfer as detailed at paragraph 3.6 and agree from the options detailed at paragraph 3.11 to recommend transfer or not to recommend transfer. So we're recommending transfer of Lockside Enterprise Workshops to Alive Community Radio to finance and procurement. And is this where you come in, Tracy, what options we are choosing?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I was just going to say that just so we've got it clear in the minute and for the recommendation we're putting forward to FPT, that we're agreeing to recommend the transfer for £1, but you will be attaching a condition which will have input from legal around a clawback should the project fail to protect the asset of the council.
You maybe need to put former asset of the council, Tracy, because we're wanting to pass it on.
And also, we couldn't use the term fail, because we're trying, I hope we don't use that, we don't want to use that kind of language just in the event of,
ceasing to function.
Or ceasing requirement to use or whatever, just some sort of wording that doesn't mean that we're sort of preempting that the organisation may fail.
No further requirement for the building, there's a good one.
There's a good one, that's great. So that would be point 5.
Yeah, Chair, we'll just make sure that there is a condition attached when it goes forward for the recommendation.
That's great, thanks members. Now move on to item number 8. The next report presents the opportunity for members to identify community groups who should be consulted on surplus land in Rochelle Park, Dumfries. Is Tom Higgins on Teams to answer any member questions or address any member comments. Hi Tom, do you have anything to add to the report?
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Then we'll go to member comments or questions.
I agree with the recommendations, Provost, unless folk have names of other organisations, because the ward officer have done some sterling work and can you find any other than the Dumfries Historic Trust, and they've not reported, so I would simply agree with the recommendations.
Members in agreement? Yeah, okay, we'll go to recommendations. 1, note that in regard to the disposal of surplus land detailed in the appendix, the agreed disposal and acquisitions policy and subsequent procedures are being followed. 2, note that there is no established community council for the Rochelle Park area of Ward 5. And 3, advise officers of any omissions to the community groups detailed in paragraph 3.4 who may have community interest in the land detailed in the appendix. Thank you. So the next report is asking to consider naming the new roads being formed at Cargan Home as Criffle Oaks. Now, Kevin Morrison is on Teams to answer any member questions or address any member comments. Anything to add, Kevin?
Hello, Chair. Hello, members. No, nothing to add to the report. Thank you.
Members have any comments?
Agree with the recommendation.
We all agreeing? That's great. Okay then. That was short and sweet, Kevin.
I know. Thank you. Yeah.
the best kind of means. Members are asked to agree Criffel Oaks as the preferred name of the new road associated with the development. Members agreed. 10. Appointments to outside bodies. Now, our final report today is regarding appointment to outside bodies. Now, we've been asked for 5 members to be appointed to the Moorheads Hospital Trust. Now, Tracy will answer. We've got Tracy here to answer any member questions or address any member comments. You got anything to add, Tracy?
No, nothing to add, Chair.
Members have any comments on this? Because I know that we had this at full council and we needed to have more information back, and we appointed the Provost as the chair of the Moorheads Trust, but we were still, was it 4 extra members or 5 extra members? Was it 5 extra members? 5 extra members are being requested by the Trust. Are members in agreement with this? Have you got any comments or any discussions on this, Jim?
The paper says it has to come from Dumfries members. I suppose we'll have to find 5 volunteers from the Dumfries borough.
Now, is that 5 borough as in ward councillors, or they live personally themselves? Because that's when it becomes a bit muddy.
It's their ward, Chair, the ward that they represent.
So are we talking Locker, Nith, North West Dumfries?
Sorry, it doesn't cover most of Nith. This doesn't cover Georgetown and Calcide. So,
but still some of Nith though, so it's still Nith councillors. Is North West Dumfries in there also?
Yeah.
Provost, just to stop you getting lonely in that, I'll put myself forward. So that'll be 2 of us.
Here you go, Provost. Trustees from the following wards that cover Dumfries Borough: North West Dumfries, Locher and Nith. Less the Provost.
Okay, so thank you, Maureen. So we're 2 down, 3 to go.
I'll put myself forward, and I'm just looking at how much the thing is. Yeah, what's involved? 1 AGM a year. Yeah.
It's just 1 meeting a year.
Yeah, I could manage that. Yeah, hopefully.
So we have Malcolm, Keith, and Maureen.
Sorry, Emma Jordan.
Oh, Emma, do you wish to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll put myself forward if that helps.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
So we're just needing 1 more from North West Dumfries, Nith or Locker. There is no eye contact being had here. Are we able to put... Can we just do 4 just now and then maybe bring this back? See if anyone else... It seems to be recurring in some of these committees. We're always filling vacancies. So the Provost and 4 members so far. Members in agreement with that so far? Yeah? Okay, we'll go to recommendations. Note that full council... Oh, sorry, Paula. You want to come in?
Yeah, sorry, Tracy. It's just on Appendix 2, when it draws out the map of the borough, it actually has Traquair in there as well, so surely Abbey Ward should be included in that.
We're just all looking at our maps just now, Paula. Locker does come into it, Maureen, because we've got some of Marchmount and stuff there, yeah.
And Abbey will only be relevant, Provost, for somebody for Abbey wanting to be part of the group.
This is very true. No. Do you know, I'm not going to keep on at this one just in case. I don't want to force anyone. It does look like Abbey Ward maybe, but we've got 4 members and the Provost. And yeah, Kim?
Well, if Abbey Ward's included, then add me.
What I'll do, Chair, is I'll note down Kim's volunteering to sit on it, and if it turns out that it's not, I'll bring a paper back to the next meeting. Okay.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks for that, Kim. So, okay, we'll go to recommendations. Note that full council at its meeting of the 24th of May 2022 appointed the Provost to sit on the Moorheads Hospital Trust, leaving the remaining 5 elected members to be appointed once further information was received in relation to whether elected members were required to be from wards located within Dumfries Borough. To note the further information provided in relation to Moorheads Hospital Trust, including a plan of Dumfries Borough in appendices 1 and 2, and agree to appoint 5 elected members, but we've appointed 4 and 1 to be so confirmed, yeah. Checked and confirmed.
You'd be better appointing 5 subject to clarification at the next meeting. That would be the simple way.
Yeah. Great, thanks. As detailed in paragraph 3.9. So then we move on to 11. I have no urgent business, so that concludes the meeting. I thank you all. We've had a very long day, long full council, and thank you for all being here, because I know we're all pretty tired. Thanks very much for your contributions.